Thank you, Laura, and thanks to our final plenary participants. Wasn't that a fantastic discussion of this great conference? I want to again acknowledge that we're meeting on the land of the Gadigal people and pay my respects to elders past and present, and to again acknowledge First Nations peoples who are here from around Australia and around the world. It has been, I know, an absolutely fantastic 2 days. I'm sorry I had to dash off back to Canberra for question time, but I have been following proceedings very closely. And I just wanted to share a couple of final announcements with you at the end of this conference, and to wrap up what I think we've achieved. As you know, on the first day of the summit, I announced that our government was signing off a massive expansion of the Heard Island and McDonald Island Marine Park, and that took Australia's protected waters, oceans, to 52% of our ocean territory. Today I wanted to let you know that I've opened consultation on an additional protection of another 73,000 square kilometres of seas in our southeast area. It's an area bigger than Ireland. The Southeast Marine Parks Network is an area of 14 marine parks off the coast of Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania. It's got protected species like the blue pygmy whale and the most amazing kelp forests. We're protecting additional areas in the Southeast network and bringing 86% of those marine parks to highly protected or no-take zones, so no fishing in those zones. We'll prevent any new oil and gas titles in those areas, and will prevent any new deep sea mineral mining or other industrial development in those areas. I also wanted to draw attention to a terrific international measure that Indonesia and Papua New Guinea have invited Australia to be part of, and it relates to the fishing gear that we see abandoned in the Arafura and Timor seas to our north. Just a few weeks ago, I met with the Dimaroo Rangers, the Indigenous Rangers who came from northeast Arnhem Land, very top of Australia, to talk to me in Parliament House about their experience of the enormous plastic fishing nets that are drifting through their oceans and up onto their beaches, and how devastating it was to see the impact of these ghost nets on the turtles, the dugongs and other species that are trapped and killed by the ghost nets. So I'm very pleased to announce that Australia will be joining the Global Ghost Net Gear Initiative, and that will invest $1.4 million in cleaning up those ghost nets from the Arafura and Timor seas as well. Can I draw your attention, if you haven't spent a moment looking at the magnificent baskets that have been made, there's an exhibition outside of how these ghost nets have been used. It's how the plastic has been reclaimed for a proper use. Please have a look at them before you leave if you get the chance. I also wanted to update delegates about Australia's participation in the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction arrangements that we've made internationally. We know that getting to 30 by 30 is going to take a lot of work domestically, but we also know that particularly when it comes to our oceans, those international waters will really be the key to reaching 30 by 30 globally. 60% of the world's oceans are in the high seas, but so far we've only protected 1%. And so after 2 decades of effort, which many of you in this room I know were hugely involved in, the governments around the world signed up to the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Treaty. Australia signed up on the first day that we could. The first day that the treaty was open for signing, we signed up. And we've provided $3 million to help our Pacific neighbours sign up and ratify the treaty as well. In June, I tabled the treaty in Australia's Parliament to make sure that we were proceeding through the domestic steps that we need to do to ratify the treaty here in Australia. And as part of our efforts internationally, as well as ratifying domestically, I announced today that Australia will accept Chile's invitation to join the Leadership for High Seas Marine Protected Area Collaborative Initiative. We're very pleased to see this international grouping working hard to make sure that the BBNJ treaty comes into force and that we can actually begin to see some of those high seas better protected as well. To that end, in a practical sense, I'm very pleased to say that Australia will work with the High Seas Alliance Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative and WWF to hold a research symposium on the South Tasman Sea and Lord Howe Rise. This is a really special area, a volcanic lost world it's been called. In the waters off the South Tasman Sea, it's a world of mountains and deep abysses a mile under the surface of the ocean, a vast plateau, the Lord Howe Rise. And it's actually, we're in my electorate right now in the seat of Sydney, but Lord Howe Island is also part of my electorate. And yes, I know, I'm very, very lucky. It is, for international visitors, the most beautiful place on earth. And one of the things that makes it unique is it's the place where the warm waters and the cold waters meet. So the biodiversity in the waters off Lord Howe Island is just extraordinary. So we're very pleased to look for ways that we can work with international partners to protect the waters that feed the biodiversity around Lord Howe Island. So it's been a busy few days for all of you. Can I say how absolutely thrilled I am to see so many people here? As you know, quite often conferences peter out a little bit towards the end. It's so great to see so many of you here in this last plenary. I really think we achieved something special here, and I know that many of us will be going to Cali in Colombia. This was never meant to be a replacement for the very serious and important work that will happen in Colombia. This was an opportunity for us to talk without trying to draft an agreement that everyone can sign up to. The complexity of that is vital, it's important. It's the next step in our global journey to net positive. But when we're focused on the wording of international agreements, sometimes it's hard to look up from the paper and talk to the person that's standing across from you and to listen to what they have to say, to hear what they're proud of in their country or their organisation, to listen to their challenges, to listen to what they're struggling with and perhaps offer some of our own insights. I think this conference has absolutely achieved that conversation in spades because of the openness and the willingness and the enthusiasm that you have all brought to your work here. So I thank you. I thank you most profoundly for taking that attitude to these 2 days. I know that although we won't have a formal communique coming out of here, I think there have been some common themes, and we heard some of them from this plenary now. But I think we've heard from many participants that summit participants really value the importance of collaboration and partnership, that solutions to the most difficult problems can be found when communities, environmentalists, investors, businesses work together with governments, that we've seen the showcasing of innovation, of the importance of traditional knowledge, of on-ground work that is already underway around the world to restore and protect nature. We know that nature repair is great for jobs, it's great for businesses and communities, and it seems to me that there are 4 real themes that have emerged for me, and this is what I'll say publicly about this conference. That nature needs to be factored into economic and business decisions. To make good decisions, we need to understand, measure and report on our economic dependence on nature, our impacts on nature, and the value of ecosystem services that our communities and our economies rely on. I'll say that clear and consistent metrics are important. Environmental metrics used to talk about impacts on nature and the condition of natural assets should be standardised wherever we can, so that we're speaking the same language when we report on nature, and that it's easier, I think, to make progress towards nature positive goals. I'll say that Indigenous leadership is absolutely critical to sustainability. Traditional knowledge plays a vital role in looking after nature, and Indigenous leaders have significant opportunities to influence economic outcomes and have a seat at the table. They should have those opportunities to call the shots. Nature. And I'll say that nature positive and net zero objectives work together. They should go hand in hand, because nature-based solutions should be used to achieve both our environment and our climate goals. So in conclusion, I say thank you. Thank you to the First Nations people who've welcomed us to Sydney, to the First Nations people who've contributed to this summit, to all of the delegates and special guests who've contributed to making the summit a success, to the ministers who've joined us from around the region in particular. And I also want to thank the people who've done all the work behind the scenes, my own public servants, the New South Wales public servants. I want to thank our MCs, Ray Johnston and Laura Jays, for their magnificent hosting of the summit. And I want to thank the staff. Yeah, they did a good job. I want to thank the staff of the ICC, the convention centre that we're in at the moment. They've looked after us so beautifully. And so to all of the organisers and to all of you, the participants, I hope you have found this time as rewarding as I have. I hope you'll take the opportunity of taking some of the field trips that have been organised tomorrow. That's another great opportunity to talk with people on those bus trips. A couple of them are quite long bus trips, so take snacks. It has been really wonderful to share this time with so many of you. When I became the Environment Minister, I very quickly realised that the environment in Australia needed the same sort of rallying cry that we've had from the climate movement. Net zero is pretty easy for people to understand. I think nature positive gives us that rallying cry. It's not a simple thing to achieve, and of course we have to talk about all of the goals that would make up what it takes to reverse biodiversity loss. And you know, I'm not trying to make this an easy slogan. But what I am trying to say is, if we want to win hearts and minds, if we want to change opinions, if we want to change the way our economy works, if we want to change how our society responds to nature, we need to be able to tell them what we want to do easily and clearly. And so I'd say with Marco Lambertini, how fantastic is it to have 1,000 people for whom Nature Positive is on their lips over these 2 days and 3 days. Please take that message with you when you leave after this conference. Take it back to your countries if you're visiting from overseas. Share those magnificent nature positive statements that we've seen from Fiji, Timor-Leste, Niue, Guam and Singapore. Thank you for your statements. Let's share them in other parts of the world as well. Thank you again.